Have you ever felt something living in your house, but never appearing when the light is on? A shadow that looks exactly like you, but only appears in the mirror, or when you're just about to fall asleep. The second story takes us on a psychological journey deep into dreams, where you are the one stalking yourself. A man begins to see his double in his sleep, on camera, and eventually in the bedroom mirror. Not every image in the camera is a bug. Sometimes, it's the final warning. This is the second one in myself. You're watching after 0 hours. I work for a property maintenance company in New York State, the kind that takes in and disposes of foreclosed, abandoned, or unclaimed homes. My duties are pretty straightforward: arrive, check for safety, take pictures, clean, lock up, and report. Nothing flashy, no surprises. Most of the time, I'm surrounded by cobwebs, rotting wood, and musty smells. But it was that boring repetition that made me complacent. In early fall 2020, I was assigned a small house in the area upstate New York, an area once known for its vibrant towns that are now mere shadows of their former selves. Factories have closed, schools have merged, and main streets are now covered with dead leaves, cracks, and "for rent" signs. The name of the town is Sharts Hollow. I had never heard of that name before. The office sent me a file, a one-story house, 414 Maple Street, foreclosed after the owner, an elderly woman named Agnes Holler, died last year. No heirs. No one came to claim the property. The house was cut off from electricity and water, and no one had been in it for over a year. Just another cleaning day, I told myself as I pulled the pickup onto the dirt road leading to the house. The sky was overcast, with gray clouds, and there wasn't a soul within a half-mile. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The road behind me had disappeared into the deciduous trees. There was no other house around, just wind, trees, and silence, as my car turned into the short path leading to the house. The first thing I noticed was everything around is being swallowed by time. The lawn was no longer grass, just wild vines that grew knee-high. The porch roof was rotten. The windows were covered in dust. The wooden steps leading up to the front porch were cracked, as if they would break with just one step. But the strange thing was, the door was still closed, intact, with no signs of vandalism or breakage. I parked, turned off the engine, and opened the door to get out. The air was thick, smelling of rotting leaves, stagnant water, and something metallic, very faint. I took out my special key, stepped up onto the steps, and tried the doorknob. It was locked. I pushed hard with my shoulder. The door swung open with atwalong and creepy, and a cold, damp air poured out as if from the ground. It was dark inside, with only a faint light coming in from the dusty window. I took the flashlight from my tool bag, turned it on, and scanned around. That is a world left behind. The armchair still had its cushions. The coffee table still had its china cups, the bottom of which had some dark, dried residue. On the dining table, a deck of cards was half opened, as if someone had just stood up and was about to come back. Each step I took made a creaking noise on the warped wooden floor. But what caught my attention most was silence. Abandoned houses often have their own sounds, the wind blowing through cracks in the door, the drip of water from a leaky pipe, the scratching of insects or small animals hiding. But here nothing, no sound, no breathing, no movement, just me and the soft hiss of the flashlight as it turned. I took out my phone to take some pictures of the current situation before I started cleaning. But when I turned it on, the screen showed no service. I raised an eyebrow. I had signaled the whole drive here. There was a cell tower a few miles away. But now, nothing. I walked down the hallway, taking a few routine photos. The windows were closed. The walls had small cracks, but no signs of serious damage. I opened the kitchen cupboards, empty. No rats, no cockroaches, no sign of anyone having been there recently. Everything seemed frozen in time. I entered the first bedroom, a bed without sheets, a frayed mattress, a closet ajar. Next door was the sewing room. I recognized it by the pile of thread and the old sewing machine on the table by the window. I didn't go in yet, because I had more to check. I just turned to walk out when my phone vibrated. I jumped. My hands shook a little as I looked at the screen. Unknown caller. No number. No network signal. But callable. I hesitated, then reached for the answer button. Hello? Silent. Nothing but quiet sound, like the sound of wind on a telephone. or the sound of an old tape being rewound. "Hello?" I repeated again. Still no answer. Just a very light breath. Or maybe I imagined it. I hung up, frowning slightly. Something was stirring inside me. I didn't know if it was the stuffy air, the absolute emptiness, or the strange call, but I knew one thing for sure. This house is unlike any I have ever moved into before. And maybe it's not simply abandoned. After the first call from the unknown number, brief and wordless though it was, the atmosphere in the house changed. Not in a dramatic, horror movie kind of way, but in a subtle, shiver-like way, as if something in the darkness had taken a step back, but was still watching. I shook my head, trying to calm myself. Maybe it was a faulty phone signal, or a system glitch. I'd been doing this long enough to know that old houses had an eerie feel to them. The damp air, the dim lighting, and the faint sounds that made people think they were being watched. But then, I started to notice every little detail, something I had initially overlooked while focusing on taking photos and working. First of all, smell. I have worked in houses with rotting animals, broken pipes, or rats. I am used to the smell of mold, rat droppings, old paint, but this house has a very strange smell, not clear, not strong, but a kind of lingering smell. Like rusted iron mixed with cold earth vapor. It was fleeting, lingering. I inhaled deeply, felt it cling to my nose, then receded as if someone were playing hide and seek with my sense of smell. I went into the sewing room, which I had passed by when I arrived. The room was small, the sewing table covered in dust, the spools of thread neatly arranged on a wooden rack mounted on the wall. A piece of fabric was still pinned to the table as if someone had stood up from a sewing session. But what stopped me was a large bulletin board hanging on the left side of the desk. On it were dozens, no, more than 50, carefully cut out and stapled newspaper strips. Each one was a small print of obituary. Name, date of death, age, a few words about the deceased. Some of the papers are yellowed, probably from the 1990s. All are local obituary, from this very area. Names like Mary L., Josephine R., Elias W. They had nothing obvious in common. Not the same age, not the same sex, but there was something about the arrangement too neat, too purposeful, makes me feel creepy. I stepped back, as if unconsciously not wanting to turn my back on that board. For some reason, I felt like it is following me. Then to the master bedroom. The room had a window that looked out onto the backyard, where trees grew close to the mossy walls. On the nightstand, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. An old rotary phone. I stared at it. The desk phone, yellowish white, the long coiled cord hanging to the floor, covered in dust. There was no reason for it to be there. The phone line had been cut off. According to records, no one used dial-up anymore. But what surprised me was, the plug is still intact. It leads to a wall socket. Although according to the infrastructure map, the line in this area has been disabled for nearly 2 years. I picked up the receiver and put it to my ear. Silent. No signal. Nothing. I put it back down, feeling a chill run down my spine. I wasn't superstitious, but something was off here. All the little details, the scent, the obituary, the dialing phone, felt like pieces of a puzzle. But my intuition whispered, they're coming together into something terrible. I walked out of the bedroom and back into the main hallway, intending to continue checking the rest of the house, when I realized something else. The light in the living room was dimmer than before. I'm sure when I turned on the flashlight to take the picture, the light coming through the window was still clear enough to see the dust in the air. But now, it was zone level darker. It wasn't the weather that had changed. I glanced out the window. It was still gray. But there was no rain, no fog. I looked again. The window glass seemed dimmer, as if someone had just breathed heavily on the glass. I stepped closer. On the glass, though dim, I swear I saw breath-like streak. I raised my hand, wiped it gently, and sure enough, the haze was gone. It not dust to be steam. It was as if someone had just pressed their face against the glass, and retreated just minutes before I returned. I swallowed, trying to calm myself. It could be the temperature difference. I told myself, I'm imagining things, but deep down, I knew, I don't imagine. This house is not just abandoned, it is memorized. It reacts in every sign, from unusual silence, to old objects, to changing light, was a warning I couldn't ignore. I walked slowly toward the kitchen, my eyes darting around, And for the first time that day, I thought, I should get out of here. But there is the basement. And the report is not finished. And I still don't know who is the person breathed on that glass. I have passed dozens of abandoned houses. Each one has its own story, a trace, a sound, a scent that carries the memories of the person who lived there. But none have made me step back like this house. I stood still in the kitchen, my palms still damp from the glass, where my breath had been smeared. I tried to convince myself that it was the temperature difference, that I was imagining it, that this was just another test. And it would be over. But my heart wouldn't agree. It was pounding, as if it wanted to drag me out of this house at any cost. I was about to continue checking the rest of the hallway, when the phone in my pocket vibrated again. I jumped, in the air as thick as damp cotton. The phone's vibration rang like a death knell. I pulled out my phone. The screen displayed, unknown caller. Again unknown number the second time in less than an hour. And the thing is I still have no signal. The signal bar is completely empty. The service icon clearly shows, no service. So why is my phone vibrating? Why am I getting calls? I hesitated. Then I touched the listen button. Face? Silent. No one spoke. But unlike the first time, this time no static, just empty. It was like I was connecting to a place that didn't exist. I pressed my ear closer. I tried to listen. And then, I heard it. A tiny, almost indistinguishable sound, breathing very light. Not urgent, not clear, but steady, lingering, as if someone was standing very close to the microphone, and just stare without saying anything. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice calm. Who is it? This is a legally controlled property. If anyone is in this house, please speak up. No answer. Only breathing. I don't know why, but I feel like that breathing sound isn't coming from anyone. Trying to call for help, it doesn't seem urgent. It doesn't feel rushed. It's like someone is watching my reaction, watching how scared I am. I hung up, my hands shaking. I looked around the house again, my heart pounding so hard it hurt my chest. I pulled out another flashlight, a brighter one, and shined it all over the hallway. The walls, the ceiling, nobody. But he no longer believed it. I reopened the call history. The latest call only showed unknown, duration, 038. 38 seconds. I heard someone breathing for 38 seconds. And I can't figure out where they are. I hurried back to the living room, intending to pack up and leave. But as soon as I entered, I stopped abruptly. The rotary phone, the one I tried before. The one with no signal. The one that seemed dead for years, is making a small sound. Not a bell, not a dial tone, but vibration. The sound vibrated slightly, as if some electric current had just been reconnected. I moved closer, placing my hand on the table. The machine is shaking slightly under my palm, as if it were about to rain. I withdrew my hand immediately. I took a step back. And then, ring. The bell rang. Yes, ring of dial phone. The classic mechanical sound, sharp, resonant, and almost unmistakable. I stood there, eyes glued to the vibrating receiver. I knew I shouldn't do what I did next. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to don't touch it. But I couldn't look away. I couldn't turn away. My arms reached out automatically. Mesmerized by the steady beat of the bell, I picked up the receiver. Silent, I put it to my ear. Slowly. And this time, it wasn't just breathing. One hoarse whisper, as light as the wind through the crack of the door, rang in my ears. Don't answer the phone in the bedroom. I froze. I can't breathe. Don't answer the phone in the bedroom. Already called disconnected. I still held the receiver in my hand shaking as if I was holding something very cold. I put the receiver back in its cradle and slowly backed out of the room. I don't know who called. I don't know where they are. But I know one thing for sure. They know where I am. They know I am listening. And more importantly, they are warning me. What warning? I glanced toward the hallway leading to the bedroom, where I had seen the original rotary phone. I don't want to go back there. But I know, sooner or later it will ring again. After the strange whispering call told me, don't answer the phone in the bedroom, I left the living room like a sleepwalker. My legs were stiff, my head was spinning. That sentence, repeated, echoing in my ears, was more than a warning. It was a guide, as if someone was trying to keep me from something even more terrible. I stood at the end of the hallway, staring at the row of half-closed doors, each one a dark cave mouth leading down to a place I didn't belong. I'd been through them all before. the master bedroom, the spare bedroom, the sewing room, but now each of those doors had a different meaning. They watch me, and I realized I needed to go back. Sewing room. Not because I want to, but because I see a small piece of newspaper fell on the floor in front of the door, something that wasn't there in the first place. A slightly yellowed piece of paper, cut from an old newspaper, contained just a few lines. Eugene R. Willoughby 71 died August 17, 1992 in Harts Hollow. I picked it up, my hand shaking slightly. On the back was an advertisement for a rheumatoid arthritis drug, faded with age. I wasn't sure how it had fallen off, or where it had come from, but I knew it was belonged to the inner room. I walked in. Sewing room. The door creaked as if groaning. The room was small, the smell of old fabric and dust heavy in the air. A sewing machine stood by the window. A traditional tabletop machine with a wooden foot pedal. On the table, a piece of red cloth was still pinned with a rusty needle. Spools of thread were lined up on racks like soldiers. The colors now only old gray tones. But what still stopped me was a large wooden bulletin board in the opposite wall. I had glanced at it before, thinking it was where sewing recipes and fabric samples were hung. But now, standing in front of it, I could see every detail clearly, gruesome details. The board is full of obituaries. Not 10, not 20, must be more than 60 sheets. Hand-cut from local newspapers. Flattened and stapled together with wooden nails. Not dated, not in order, not even by paper color. But they're Israels. They are arranged in columns. Each column has exactly 7 sheets. Every 7 names go down a line, forming a grid, like a statistical table, or a memo. I looked closely at each name. Marjorie K. 63 died 1984. Henry B. age 42 died 1975. Angela D. 19 years old, died 1991. Ellipsis. I scanned the lines. Some names were repeats. Some were circled in red. Others had an X in the upper right corner. And in the bottom right corner, there is a newer piece of paper, not cut from newspaper but handwritten. Small, slightly slanted, black ink. Reads, "No answer yet, we'll call back." I got goosebumps all over my body. No answer, we'll call back? This is not just a memorial. This is tracking board. Someone used this board as a tracking system, a list of people who called, who answered, and who didn't answer. I stepped back, not taking my eyes off the board. A vague feeling came to mind. Could it be calls are not random? But from the main this list, and if so, who is calling? And they want me. Answer what? My eyes unconsciously turned to the desk. There, placed next to the sewing machine, was a other dial phone, black, different from the one in the living room. The stethoscope is placed neatly. The coiled cord is long and loose, and the line connects to the phone jack on the wall was cut off. Clear, it cannot work. I bent down and tried to pick it up. Heavy, cold, no signal. I put it back, but the strange thing is, there is a layer of dust just cleaned around the handle area. As if someone new used it recently. I pulled out my cell phone again. Still no signal. I was about to take a picture of the obituary when I realized, camera cannot focus, the image is completely blurry. Like there is noise. I tried again. Second time. Third time. Unclear. Didn't save. Just a meaningless gray-white patch. I started to have difficulty breathing. The room seemed to shrink. The walls were covered with names of the dead. The phone was silent. The handwritten note said, "Call back." I knew I needed to get out of here. I needed air. I needed natural light. I turned and walked quickly out of the sewing room. The door slammed shut behind me, which I never touched. I stood in the middle of the hallway, my back drenched in sweat. I dare not turn back. And I know this is not over yet. I don't remember how long I stood in the hallway after leaving the sewing room. Maybe seconds, maybe minutes. Time, in this house, no longer obeyed normal logic. It stretched when I wanted to run. It shortened when I needed to think. Like everything here, it became vague, distorted, and unreliable. I looked around. The 3 doors were still as silent as before. The yellowed light bulb in the hallway flickered. There was no sound, no wind, no footsteps, no cracking of rotten wood. Only silent, a kind of living silence, as if the house were holding its breath with me. I backed into the living room, my heart pounding. Every step echoed like a drum in my chest. I wanted to leave. I wanted to pack up. take the necessary pictures, and drive out of this dead town. But the moment I stepped through the living room door, the phone in my pocket vibrated again. I didn't need to pull it out to know what was happening. The way the phone vibrated, slowly, deliberately, wasn't a text or a notification. It was a calendar this time. I know for sure who is calling. I pulled out my phone. The screen showed, unknown caller, no number, no contacts, no network signal. I couldn't help but think of the earlier warning. Don't answer the phone in the bedroom. And now, I am standing at living room. I stared at the screen for a second, then took a deep breath and hit the answer button. I put the phone to my ear. Silent. No breathing this time. No silence. I almost thought I would just hear meaningless space when a soft whisper sounded, so small, so close, as if it came not from the other end of the line, but from the phone I'm holding. I'm still in the house. I stood still, eyes wide. The voice did not belong to anyone I knew. It was neither male nor female. It tearing apart all gender or age distinctions. It's simply present. Before I could react, the voice continued. Don't answer in the bedroom. Don't go downstairs. Already, hang up. No beeps. No interruptions. Just end. I held the phone to my ear for a few more seconds, as if I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Don't go down the stairs. I swallowed. This house was a bungalow, right? Or was it something else? I remembered the floor plan in the file. There was a basement. A door leading down was near the kitchen, behind the cupboards. I turned my head to look in that direction. The closet door was still ajar. I hadn't checked. I didn't know if I had the courage. But now, through that whisper, the house seemed to declassify me. It warned me. It knows where I'm going. It wants me to listen, or suffer the consequences. I went to the window and yanked the curtains open. Daylight streamed in, but it didn't help. It was gray outside. No cars, no houses, just forest and forest. It felt like I was in another world, a place cut off from the map. I sat down on the sofa, my head spinning. I tried to reason. Was this some kind of malicious game? A coworker, perhaps, someone tech-savvy, controlling the phone remotely? But who knows the structure of the house so well? Who would call at the exact moment I stepped out of the sewing room? Who knows where I'm going, before I do? No, this is not a joke. There is something living in this house, and it is talking to me. I jumped up and walked towards the front door. My hand touched the doorknob. It was cold. I don't know if I should leave. I don't know if anyone will believe what I say. But I do know one thing. I can't go on. Ignore the warnings. I was about to open the door when the phone vibrated again. I pulled out. My throat was dry. My hands were shaking. Unknown caller. I don't listen. Not this time. I turned off the device. Hold down the power button. Completely turning off the device. I don't want to hear anything more. But, in the moment the screen went off, I saw a red flashing light behind me, reflected in the glass door. Message notification light, from landline phone. I turned back. The rotary phone in the living room just flashed. I stood frozen in the living room. The rotary phone, an old, dusty one, tried before without a signal flashing message light. The red color of the LED is not glaring, but in the damp and quiet space of the house, it becomes a visual warning, a clear sign that this place does not follow normal rules. I walked slowly, my heart beating like a drum. My footsteps on the rotten wooden floor made a long, lingering sound, like a silent warning from the floor itself. I knelt down in front of the phone. The phone line is still down. Do not plug into any power source. I saw it earlier, clearly. Definitely. And yet now it is bright. I don't know why, but something inside me urged. Listen, not out of curiosity anymore, but because it feels like I called name. It's like something is choosing me. And if I don't listen, it will find another way. Worse. I touched the receiver. My hand was cold. When I picked it up, I didn't put it to my ear right away. I just held the receiver in my hand, waiting for something unusual. And then, it happened. Clack. A slight noise came from the other end of the line, as if someone had just picked up the phone from the other side. I froze. It felt like I was talking through a wireless device between two worlds, one breathing, one long silent. I slowly put the receiver to my ear. This time, it wasn't breathing, it wasn't silence, but voice. A female voice, husky and soft, rang out clearly, not resonant, not supernatural, But as if a real person is standing on the other end. Basement. I froze. My throat felt tight. Someone hasn't left yet. The voice was not urgent. Not sad. It conveyed truth. I stepped back reflexively, but didn't let go of the receiver. They never get out of there. They never leave here. I swallowed hard and stammered. Who is still there? There was silence on the other end. There was only a slight hiss, like metal rubbing against old wire. Then, the female voice added another sentence, so softly that I had to tilt my head to hear clearly. They are still waiting for someone to hear. Afterward, hang up. No beep. No traditional hang-up sound. Just an abrupt cut, as if power is unplugged. I lowered the receiver and replaced it. My hands were shaking, my lips dry. A cold shiver ran down my spine, followed by a numbing sensation at the back of my neck. Basement. I recall the previous warning. Don't go down the stairs. But now, the female voice reminded. Someone hasn't left yet. Who is right? Who is wrong? I pulled out my personal phone, intending to take a picture of the camera as evidence. But the phone's still no signal camera not working. Every app is like frozen. Same as my device does not exist in this world too. I turned toward the kitchen, where an old wooden door led down to the basement. The door was unlocked, just ajar. I walked forward. Each step seemed to weigh a kilo more. Standing in front of the door, I put my hand on the cold doorknob. I hear youth sound of my own heartbeat. What is below? A room of rotting stuff? A forgotten path? Or is it, who never left here? I took a deep breath. And when I turned the doorknob, the dial tone behind me rang again. RRRRRRING. I spun around. The receiver vibrated again. The red light flashed again. Once again, I called. I haven't gone down to the basement yet. But clearly someone down there knew I was coming. I stood still in front of the door leading down to the basement. No more ringing phone. No more voice echoing in my head. The whole house fell into a kind of fake silence, as if it were hold your breath with me, and the only thing separating me from the truth was a cold doorknob. I turned the knob. The door made a soft click and opened. A cold draft of air rushed up from the stairs below. Not like the cold of winter or air conditioning, but the cold from the rocks, from the damp, from places where light has not touched for years. The damp, musty smell mixed with something fishy made my stomach churn. I shined the flashlight down. The rotten wooden staircase was steep, narrow and longer than I had expected. The wooden steps were warped, as if struggling to keep from collapsing at any moment. The concrete walls on both sides were covered with green moss. There was no railing, no light switch. Only thick darkness was opening his mouth waiting for me to enter. I took a deep breath and stepped down. With every step I took, the wood beneath my feet groaned painfully, in protest, but I couldn't turn back. I had to know who or what had never left here. When I reached the bottom of the steps, the flashlight revealed a narrow room, low ceiling, damp walls, streaked with dried blood. To the left were dusty wooden shelves, damp cardboard boxes, and old household items. To the right was an old iron bed, moldy mattress, and a small table. But what took my breath away was in the middle of the room. One-piece armchair, old chair facing the wall. Someone was sitting there. I froze. The flashlight shook in my hand, the flickering light making everything seem to move. I called softly, "Hello." No response. I walked slowly, each step as if wading through thick mud. The flashlight moved forward. Saw human hand hanging down the side of the chair. Skin wrinkled, pale, veins prominent, fingers curled, as if no blood had flowed through them for a long time. I squeezed around the side of the chair and saw face. One body. There was no doubt about it. It was an older man, wearing a silver gray shirt, his face tilted to one side, eyes wide open. Stare at the wall. His facial muscles were stiff. His mouth opened as if he was trying to say something before he died. Beside him, on the small table, was a rotary phone identical to the one in the living room. The cord was still plugged in, but there was no power. I looked down at the table, and my heart almost stopped. Next to the phone, an open notebook, densely handwritten text. Called first time, no answer. Called a second time, heard breathing. Call 3, basement alert. Call 4 times, will be down. Call 5 on the way. The last line written in red ink. Call has been heard. I was devastated. He called. He tried contact someone. With me? with people before me, and now he sat there, cold and dry, next to the last phone he'd touched. I saw a small photo fall under the chair. I bent down to pick it up. It was a family photo. The man in the chair, Eugene R. Willoughby, was with his wife and daughter. But scrawled across the back of the photo were the words, "I never left, and now, neither will anyone else." I heard something behind me. I turned around. The flashlight was pointed at the stairs. The basement door is closing. No wind, no one. I ran towards the stairs, running, but as soon as I stepped on the first step, ringing, the phone downstairs rang. Not one. Hi, they are. 4 bells rang throughout the cellar. I turned back to look. The flashlight was flickering, and I see clearly the old man's body on the chair, turned to look at me. The basement door slammed shut above me, the darkness squeezing my throat. The flashlight in my hand flickered and went out. I was plunged into the thick darkness, where the musty smell and deadly cold surrounded me like a curse. Behind me, the rotary phone continued to ring, persistent, patient, like a tireless entity calling me towards it. I'm not coming back. I run. My feet hit boxes, crates, metal tables, but I didn't stop. I followed my memory, my hands groping each cold wall. When I reached the first step, I was almost in tears. I climbed up on all fours like a frightened animal. Each wooden step creaked under my feet like a scream. And then, when I pushed open the basement door, it opened. I rushed out, the hallway light blinding me, but I didn't care. I ran to the front door and threw it open, for the first time since I'd arrived. Outside, it was afternoon. The sun was red, the wind was blowing, and the town of Hearts Hollow was as peaceful as ever. I stood there, panting, cold sweat soaking my back. My heart was pounding, and as I turned back to look at the house, everything inside is dark. No more light. No more lights. No more sound. As if it had decided to close the door on me forever. I said nothing. I just walked silently back to my car, started it, and left the town of Hearts Hollow without looking back. 2 weeks later, I wrote up the whole thing, posted it, along with a portfolio of photos and videos I took, to a paranormal investigators forum. Not for fame, but for leave of proof. And then, a week later, I received an anonymous message. You were the first person to listen to all 5 calls. And the first person to survive. I don't know who sent it. But then I went back to my normal life, with work, friends, and new investigations. I never went back to Hearts Hollow again. But I heard that the house was demolished by the town. Seal. No one moved in. No one sold. And after a night of heavy rain, the house collapsed. Nothing left but cracked dirt. One of the townspeople said that the night the house collapsed, they heard the phone rang somewhere underground. I dare not verify. I just know that I was luckier than many who have set foot in there. I listened. I ran. I trust your intuition. Happy ending and message. The story I tell is not intended to scare anyone. It is a sincere warning. Sometimes, what we see is just the surface. Places that seem ordinary, an old house, a quiet town, an anonymous phone call, can hold secrets no one could ever imagine. But above all, this story says one important thing. Trust your gut when a place makes you feel uneasy, when an object no longer feels real, or when the voice in your head tells you to, don't go on. Then don't try to explain it with logic. Just listen, because maybe, someone is saving you. Clapperboard if you found this story interesting and thrilling. Please leave a comment below to share your thoughts on this journey. Do you believe in the supernatural? Have you ever encountered any phenomena that are difficult to explain? Thumbs up, click like, to support the main character who overcame a terrifying experience and survived. Bell, don't forget to subscribe to continue following other strange, mysterious and emotional stories every week. Thank you for listening to the end. We don't know what to expect on the next phone call, but hopefully it's you who answers.